I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I am home, I am home. How are we feeling? Show me some thumbs or some arms.
Oh, that's so lovely. Welcome to the NoWastedDays podcast, a show centering on helping people improve their self-awareness and self-assurance by sharing skills, stories, and strategies from a diverse range of people that can be easily applied or explored on a day-to-day basis. The mission of NoWastedDays is to unconditionally support people with being alive. The lives we all lead are these incredibly fortuitous things, but that doesn't stop them from becoming very complicated and confusing. As a result, there is nothing that should be more readily available to all of us than spaces that can help us all think more clearly and easily about ourselves. With this mission in mind, NoWastedDays is building a bank of information, unique digital tools and interactive experiences that can help anyone become more self-aware and self-assured at a cost they can control. With all this being true, and without any further ado, today's guests are two super talented women who exist in the worlds of singing, meditation, and mental health. There could hardly be two better people to explore how singing and silence can be used to support ever-increasing self-awareness and self-assurance, whether you consider yourself a Zen-like singing sensation already, or someone to whom the sound of your own voice or the sound of silence makes you more than a little bit uncomfortable. In no particular order, it's my pleasure to introduce Mary and Maya. How's it going, guys?
Hello.
Just
Hello,
like
hello. Thanks
All
for
just
the
a
way.
little shake, just a little instinctive shake.
nervous wave.
I'm a big fan of the sound of silence, but it doesn't work for podcasts very well. So we might have to do a bit more than just waving. But anyway, we'll kick off with the first question, because my hope is that everybody that appears on the podcast will get a chance to respond to the kind of 5 core questions, which are like the spine of the format. And then I've got loads of separate questions about singing, about meditation, about performance and general stuff that can hopefully be really interesting too. So whoever feels like tackling it first, because you'd technically be the first person to ever do it, because we forgot to ask it on the first episode. So I've shared with Mary and Maya a diagram that is like a matrix. So one axis is going from no self-awareness to complete self-awareness, and the other axis is going from no self-assurance to, complete self-assurance. Where do you think you'd plot yourself at the moment on that diagram, and perhaps how has that evolved over time?
It's definitely an evolving thing. I'm glad that you said that, because it's a journey. I think this quest for self-awareness and self-assurance, and it's something that we can always dip into and try to keep evolving and keep connected to. I definitely have become more self-aware and more self-assured as well, in the last couple of years or so, since kind of finding my vocation and just connecting more with other people, because for me that's the biggest thing, is that connection to others. And the pandemic kind of brought around so much isolation, so many trying times, so much stress for so many people that a lot of people were just feeling really, where do I go from here? Who am I? What am I doing? It's all these questions that we were asking each other, so and asking ourselves. I think I would plot myself at the moment kind of towards the top half. Definitely over the line. I think maybe before the pandemic and over the pandemic I was probably just under the line. So definitely trying to kind of get more towards the top, but like I said, it's always a journey, and I think we'll always be on that mission for self-awareness and self-assurance. So
I I love that. I love those set of thoughts, and it would be so interesting to see how that kind of diagram plays out over time with where people believe they are. And that's something I will do towards the end of the year, make it kind of a survey. So above and beyond the people who appear on the podcast, we put it out to the general population too, and just see where the kind of dots and the heat map kind of centers about where people think they are. But I couldn't agree with that anymore. That thing about, if you're close to people and you're close enough to them to understand their stories, that makes you so more self-aware, because you realize that this pattern of life is so variable. You know, everybody has their ups and downs, everybody has their really trying times, or, you know, moments of triumph, and it kind of saves you from the worry of, like, or particularly on the self-assurance half, of like comparing yourself to only this small substrata of people that we see in the news media or on social media, and therefore getting really concerned. Everybody's life is more rich and complicated than sometimes what we get shown or are exposed to. And yeah, the fact that that's come through your vocation, above and beyond just perhaps reading or you just being a sociable person, is kind of fascinating too. No, but I love that thought. What would you say, Maya?
Without trying to not give an identical answer, I wrote the same thing. I think it's very much a case of in the same way that happiness is not a destination, it's a journey. I kind of feel the same way about this. So I said I'm somewhat in the middle. I'm definitely more self-aware, I think. I think that comes through years. I mean, I have had anxiety almost all my life, so I think I've kind of been forced to be self-aware. But there's been a journey through mindfulness of switching that mindset of becoming more self-aware and knowing how to use it in the right ways and how to get the most out of life, for me personally. And obviously, like you were saying, it's not a linear process or journey. Everyone's different. And also it's a funny time for me because as I said, I've decided to go back into the performing industry.
Yeah, which is super exciting.
It's super, super exciting. And I knew I made the right decision because I was so fueled and so fulfilled. But at the same time, that is so testing on my self-assurance, because it is a career in proving yourself to others. So for me, it's about finding that balance of definitely not having that in home and friend situations, if that makes sense. So like, because my career literally is that, and having to present my best self or elevated self, for me it's being able to relax with friends and be my authentic self without having to worry about opinions and whatnot. Sorry, I think I've diverted from the question.
It's a great answer, because it relates to a question that I had. Like, I posed the question to Jade and Sam, who were two kind of creative people in kind of art and design and stuff, and within advertising, that a trapping of being that way inclined is you become very you see yourself in your work and vice versa, and if someone criticizes the work or the ideas aren't free flowing, then it's kind of can really dent your self-assurance if you can't detach and separate. Like, from your respective experiences as performers, because you just teed it up a little bit, that it's kind of it feels to me, at least as someone who has no experience of that it would be even more difficult, because it's not even the kind of this kind of external thing of your ideas or your designs. It's literally you stood on the stage, acting, singing, whatever. Does that make it more difficult on a self-assurance, self-awareness basis, and that kind of detachment piece? It seems like it would instinctively.
But also there's also the added thing of it's so subjective. So someone you present yourself to might absolutely love it. Like, let's say the case of self-tapes, you've got like 3 different edits and you're like, oh, I know this sort of person would prefer this edit, but this one, and it's a guessing game. And it's it's definitely an added layer, because it is all opinion based and luck based. So 100%, I would say it's definitely testing.
Would you say that lots of this, as I teed up in the intro, is about finding techniques, tactics, strategies to help people either detach from self or just any route to becoming more self-aware or self-assured? And you just touched on the idea of luck or good fortune. Is that it might be a cruel mistress in a way, because it feels to me that if you know about the role of luck and good fortune in that whole exercise, then that can help you kind of have some perspective on what happened. But then it also must be quite frustrating, because you can see that so much of what drives your ability to grow and get opportunities is so completely out of your control. Is that a kind of tricky dynamic to manage? But equally, could you use that wisdom and knowledge of the fact that it is a bit luck and good fortune based to kind of make you a bit more centered and say, well, hey,
Definitely.
I know I gave a great performance there, X, Y, and Z. I know I took care of the variables, even if I didn't get some of the good fortune.
Yeah, definitely. It's a dynamic. It's definitely a learning dynamic, and like you say, it does make you look inwards and look at what you can control. And it's always easier said than done, saying like what you can control. You're always going to think, oh, like, just wish I had got that part, or you're going to nitpick and say, oh, I sung out of tune on that one word and that's messed up the whole, like, those thoughts will always come in. But like you say, there's definitely growth to happen by having the mindset of, this is what it is, I can't change that. So what is most useful for me to do is work on my craft and what is in my control, and doing that training. Because obviously for a lot of performers as well, half the time you're not really performing, it's a lot of downtime. So staying in control by doing workshops or online classes or things like that, and doing things that you definitely can control and aid you, I think are super beneficial for keeping the mental health happy.
Because it must be so bloody difficult. A thought that just came to mind, and I don't know if you know of this person. I'm definitely not a theatre buff or someone who knows about all the different actors and stuff on the stage, but there's a woman I kind of love from a few videos and some performances of Company and a few different other things, called Elaine Stritch. She was kind of an older kind of female actress in America for 40, 50 years, etc. And there's a video, sadly, when she passed away, she had a kind of this obituary video on the New York Times, and she kind of was talking about how she resented her life being so difficult a lot of the time, and just being a performer being so difficult. You have to work so hard to earn these opportunities. But then she also reflected on it, had it come more easily, it probably would have been, to use her phrase, too much Christmas. And that would have got frustrating or annoying as well. So, sometimes we kid ourselves that, if X opportunity or whatever played out, then everything would have been fine. But actually, when you succeed too, that comes with its own trappings. So, take one problem at a time, solve it, and, take care of your variables in the moment you're in. Don't assume that actually, oh God, if only I'd got that role or this, then all of my problems would disappear, because you'll get some fresh challenges and some fresh problems. Would you say that was sort of true from your experience of actually getting, roles and opportunities?
Yeah. Well, it's just such a risky, detrimental mindset, isn't it? Putting all your hopes and dreams on that one happening, and I don't even think that's performer based. I think that's anything based. Putting pressure on yourself in any way, shape, or form, whether it's I don't know, societal pressures of like you need to start a family, or I don't know. There's, if you put all your happiness or success on that one thing, it's just such a risky business. Which it's something to think about a lot, though, as a creative. Because I have so many different passions, and that's been such a learning journey for me. And I'm like, what are my hobbies and what is my vocation? Like, it's hard, and there's not like a set balance, like, because it's not like every day it would be like, oh, if I had 1 hour increments for each passion, that's great. Because some days you just want to like dive in, and I just want to sing all day, and that's all I want to do that day, and I have an amazing experience from it. And some days I'm like, I need a little bit of everything. Like, I need time to meditate today, I need time to go for a walk. So I don't even know where I'm really going with this.
No. it's a lovely thought, because I empathize entirely, and it is something that came up in the first podcast, that you need to remove yourself from the expectations of other people or of society at large about how much time is worth divesting into one interest or one hobby, etc. But also that's not the only source of wisdom. Like, from my own personal experience of my life, I think I could attribute both some of my joy and growth and personality and my interest in life to the diversity of things that I've tried to do and the interests that I've had, but also to some degree, why I've been picked such divergent things to do. This isn't about me by any stretch, but like, I picked a load of very different things to do in life at different times, of starting kind of organic fashion brands and becoming a kind of performance analyst in an ice hockey team, and trying to do startups, but trying to have a career and doing things like this. And some of that I could probably attribute to a little bit of self-sabotage, never quite focusing on one thing enough to do it with some actual excellence and kind of move the needle. And then, because of my past and trauma, I was a little bit self-sabotaging, whereas actually to focus a little bit more on just a couple of things would have been a good idea.
Relatable thing, though. That's such a relatable thing. I like exactly, you've worded that so well. I don't think I've ever been able to word it that well to other people, but I've had that a lot in my life, where I've had moments of like, right, this is what I'm doing, and then it's like, no, this is not what I'm doing. And what I found super interesting, this is really random, but like, when I was doing I finished my meditation and mindfulness teacher training course, and I kind of was looking at getting into life coaching. And then I had this realization that the reasons that I was looking for, of what I wanted to gain out of becoming a life coach, were actually all related to what I had been missing and searching for in my identity as when I was a performer. And I think that's such a hard thing to navigate. And also, we are really layered people. Like, we should be able to express ourselves and have these multifaceted passions, like doing lots of different things. It shouldn't be that, like, oh, you're you're an analyst or you work in marketing. Like, we are human, and being human is having so many different things. And yeah, for me, in the end, it was a realization that I love people. I want to explore human connections and empathy, but these are all ideas that are discussed in meditation and mindfulness and life coaching, and they're all interlinked. But for me, I came to the realization that it was linked to stuff before. But
that's hugely where we cross over, Maya, isn't it? It's like we went to uni and studied the same course, and it was just so many different things. Like, I mean, it was wonderful because we learned a lot about ourselves, and we learned a lot about the world and performance and music and dance and cool fun things like that. But yeah, I think where we cross over now is definitely that connection to people. We need that. It's just a need that we have to fulfill. And we'll look for it in any way, that we can, and in ways where we can help people as well. So yeah, I think whilst also trying to nurture and nourish ourselves, and that kind of part of us that is kind of like, where do we go and what are we doing with our creative passions?
Yeah, no, I love, there was two key thoughts there, the kind of caring for people, but also how the doing of the different things helps you learn more about yourself. And it's, I don't know, you could probably attest to the same thing, that I think we all know people in life who you've gone on such a linear not necessarily self-prescribed journey of just one thing, and perhaps they're our age, anywhere between kind of 25 and 35, and they're kind of scratching around. They're quite high functioning, they've got everything under control, but maybe they lack a little bit of self-awareness and self-assurance because they've not veered off that path very much, or not been given enough freedom or enough personal courage to say, oh, actually, I'm gonna try that slightly tangential thing, or I'm gonna try 6 things and then see how I feel at one point. And I think it's clearly a virtue of being in the performance space is that there's so many ways to build that muscle of being a good performer. It's not necessarily just doing the one thing. It's so many different skills, and there's so many different types of performance and whatever. Would you say from your experience there's been perhaps one or two that have been the most revealing or the most additive to your self-assurance or self-awareness, or is it more just the doing of a lot of different stuff?
Definitely. I mean, I think as we said before, that it's changing a lot. There was a time in my life where I lived and breathed and dreamt everything yoga, and for me that was like all of it. And with age and with change, it's changed, and I grew to feel at home in a lot more slower restorative things, and that's where my interest for meditation came through. So definitely meditation and singing. For me, it's like, it's going to sound so corny, but it's like when I can just like close my eyes and have a moment to sing, it feels like I'm just like transporting to another planet, in a whole nother world. And that's just for me. I don't mean singing for performing for anyone else. I mean like when I'm by myself and just able to do that, I'll reopen my eyes and I'm like, oh, I feel like I've literally just traveled to Mars. Like it's yeah, it's such a unique experience for me, and I'm sure Mary will say exactly the same, because again, that's somewhere we've always connected, with our voices as well.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I always say to people, it's like that when you sing, for me, it's the only time that I feel fully present, 100%. Like, I can go for a walk. I try and do all those things that you think, oh, I'll feel present if I do that. But my mind does always wander, eventually. Not that that's a bad thing, it's just kind of I notice where I feel the most present is when I'm singing, because you're literally activating those amazing parts of you that help you heal, if that makes sense. And there's something about releasing your voice and feeling, maybe, a lot of us are told when we're younger that we can't sing or that we shouldn't sing, or we're tapped on the shoulder and we don't get into the school choir or whatever it is, so it's just having that vulnerability to free your voice and embrace it as well. And that's what it's all about for me. It's connecting to yourself and allowing yourself to be present through using your voice and connecting to it. Yeah, it's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, that was the word I just scribbled down, vulnerability, because that seems to be the huge power of singing, is that it's your voice and it's your personal noise, and it's such immediate feedback, and it's it's so internal. Would you, if you had, how much of the kind of self-assurance, self-awareness, or meditative power of singing do you reckon comes from that vulnerability piece? Is that one of its biggest tenets, the fact that it is so into out?
Yeah, I mean, we've always singing, it's groundbreaking, what I do, but then it's not as well. We've been doing it for years, thousands of years, and it's ceremonies, rituals, daily human life. We've been singing. It's a huge part of the human landscape. So yeah, we've kind of grown as a society, or with insecurities or whatever that are given to us as well, to feel like we can't or we shouldn't. So there is a huge vulnerability in just letting your voice free. Even if you consider yourself a singer, or like a good singer even, there's still, you're having lessons and you're being told you could be better, you could improve, or you perform and you sing something that you're not happy with, and it's like, oh, there's always this feeling of improvement. So it's just about connecting to it and just letting it be, letting your voice be. And something amazing happens when we sing, particularly as a group. They even say that your heartbeats begin to synchronize and things like that with the beats. So yeah, there's definitely a sense of belonging, and it's beautiful when you can get in a room and connect with people who afterwards say to me, oh my God, I've never sung before like this, or I never thought I could, and thank you. People are so grateful, because it's kind of like, wow, my eyes are open now to the idea that I can do this, and it's not something that I shouldn't do.
Yeah,
it's a scary thing for people.
Yeah, I love that series of thoughts. But and it's funny that you just mentioned having your eyes open. But I think, and hey, Mary, you are definitely the expert here. That singing as a group piece, and obviously you've mentioned the kind of historical context of that, as you know, as the evolution of groups of people, whether it's drum beats or humming, chanting, these frequencies that can then unite you as a group, are so endemic to what it means to be a human being and connect as a group. Like, it's kind of utterly fascinating. I'm not an expert on what kinds of frequencies or what is really kind of driving the real power of that, but it's massive. But also you mentioned the eyes piece. Like, I wondered if they were at all equivalent. I once did a meditation class that involved, turning to the person you happen to be sat next to and just looking in their eyes for like 15 minutes. And the guy was kind of priming you with different thoughts. And it's amazing. Nobody said anything, but you're communicating the thoughts as best as you can without saying anything at all. But you're just acknowledging each other's respective humanity. And there's so much of that seems to be true of the kind of the group singing experience, or maybe even a one-to-one singing, like two people singing in harmony. And it's like, all of that costs nothing, but it helps you transcend, it helps you connect with other human beings, and it's so available, but also we kind of suppress it. But that was a random series of utterances. But just to go back to the kind of the cathartic power of that, of Mary, obviously you run all of these phenomenal classes that use singing as a tool for different kinds of health improvements and kind of connecting as a group. Like, do you want to just speak to that power of the communal kind of singing experience?
Somebody said something in my session yesterday. They were talking about how there is this great social sickness of society. I think those were their words, and they said loneliness.
Yeah.
And it just hit me hard. It hit really hard because I do a singing for breathing class with people who are often quite, elderly or living with breathing difficulties. And they're isolating since COVID and things like that as well. So some of them are, they're very vulnerable people. And yeah, one of them just said that, and I was like, my heart goes out to everybody that still feels that loneliness. And we can all feel lonely at times, even if you're surrounded by people, you can still feel lonely. And it is a sickness of society and the country. And, you just think anything that you can put out there in the world that makes people feel a teeny tiny bit better, even if it's just for a few moments, it's powerful stuff. So yeah, I think we talked. Normally we have a half-hour chat at the beginning and then an hour for the singing part of the session, and we talked for about 45 minutes I think yesterday instead. And yeah, we only did about half an hour of singing at the end, but they said to me, Mary, it's not a waste of time. This connection and this we can talk to other people that are living with similar difficulties that we are living with, and that's what's so lovely about groups that are set up for singing, like for dementia, or they're singing for Parkinson's. They do singing for breathing as well, of course. And yeah, it's kind of these groups that are set up for that purpose, where people can feel connected to others who are going through the same thing or dealing with similar problems. So yeah, I love running overall general singing for wellbeing classes, because I'm always like, hey, come in, doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter who you are, come and join us, it's great. And people love that too. But there is something so nourishing about a group where it kind of has a soul purpose, a soul mission. And yeah, they all feel that way, they all feel that connection, and then afterwards they've done something good for themselves. And yeah, it's powerful, and it's so healing, and it makes me emotional, a lot of the time. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel that entirely. And I have been meaning to join your morning classes and your online ones for forever. I did mention in the first podcast we did how I've got this quiet goal to improve my singing, because to what Maya said earlier, if I could just sit in a room to myself and sing to myself, or sing and play some chords, I reckon there'd be a risk I'd never do anything else, because I think I just find that so bloody fun and nice that I would never, like, I really should do it. But to your point about loneliness, no wonder, that person was so insightful to call it a kind of social sickness, because we're in a, in our Western society, at least, we prize individualism and the power and autonomy of individual people. And also we're surrounded by our phones and smartphones, which can give us a million different contexts and different bits of dopamine, and it just shuts people off. Obviously we're exploring South America at the moment, and you see cultures that are grounded on very, very different properties. Everybody has a role, no matter how old you are. It's heavily community based, and sometimes you can be at risk of look at these groups as looking a little bit naive or a little bit unsophisticated. But do they have the same problems with loneliness that we're creating in our societies? Dare I say they don't? But that loneliness piece only serves to make the power of your singing classes and the power of kind of anybody with a kind of meditation or a mindfulness mental health bent even more valuable tools or people in our society, because those problems are not going away, or problems of loneliness and individualism aren't going away by accident.
And I think that's where there's a really nice, I think we've frozen.
We can still hear you, Maya. No. She has frozen. It was bound to happen to one of us at some point.
It's all good. The power of the edit. But I'm obsessed with that thought constantly. It's like,
it made me really sad when he did say it, because I was like, he just felt like he needed to express that in the moment. Like, he said the fact that we talk, Mary, don't, because I mean, you kind of think, we're still chatting and I should have started the session, and I'm just looking at the clock like, but he said to me, it's not a waste of time. Sometimes we just need it. Sometimes we just need to talk. And for some of them, it's the only time in the week that they do, which saddens me even more, but then I'm glad I can give it to them. So it's kind of this weird complex. Anyway, sorry, what were you saying, Maya?
I was going to say, just on the point of like loneliness and connectedness, I feel like that's just, it's probably going to be a running theme throughout this podcast, but about the different ways singing and meditation are linked as well. I feel like there's that connectedness through, like, singing, you get that vibrational feel in your body, which is an added layer. And I mean, you can get that from chanting and meditation as well. It's that sound and it's that vibrational frequency. And when you're singing in a group, you're connected because you have an immediate response of connectedness, because you can feel it in the moment. Whereas I feel like with something like meditation, when you're if you're by yourself, obviously in a group setting, it's different, but you're getting that connectedness through voice if you're chanting, because you're connecting to that frequency, and by connecting to the earth, you're connecting to others. It's still achieving the same kind of feeling, but manifesting in a different way and presenting itself in a different way. And maybe it's a slower process with meditation, and you get more of an immediate gratification from singing, but they both have this amazing thing of body experience as well. I think it's
it's that grounding, isn't it? Like in your body.
Exactly.
Yeah. And again, that relates, for me, that's the feeling of presence. Like if I can feel grounded, I can feel as present as I can be, hopefully, in the moment.
No, I love that kind of partnership of thoughts, and it speaks a lot to what we're talking about in terms of singing and the sound making, the vibration making of singing, but also the power of mindfulness and meditation. They're two kind of opposite routes to that same feeling of kind of presence and groundedness, and the power of that sort of helping you feel like this complete connectedness to everything, whether it's that everything happens to be the people in a room, or global consciousness, people at large, the human condition, if you can get to that present moment, it really mindfully, whether it's through chanting or whether it's through sitting in complete silence and having some good kind of meditation techniques, utterly transformative on a self-assurance, self-awareness basis.
Well, it's about looking in, isn't it? You look in, and then that, as a domino effect, elevates your experience of life as well, because by being more compassionate to yourself, you have more empathy for others and for the world, and that just creates that feedback loop, right? Like what you give, you get back. You put out good, you get good back. I remember a teacher said to me years ago, and it's just a funny little saying, and I just think of it all the time, but it's like, he says, you plant a mango tree, you're going to get mangoes, you're not going to get coconuts. It's just a funny, silly thing, and it's nice to think that, encouraging that good. So what you give to yourself as well is so important in your experience of life, because it will, what you give to yourself will help what you give to others, which will come back to you too. So that's why, I guess that self-awareness and self-assurance are so important.
Something that just came to mind when you said that, Maya, was that point about introspecting and look inwards. Some people find more easy than others, and obviously you two as a pair have this huge spectrum of moments and disciplines where people may or may not be looking inwards that much. Obviously the people that you meet in your meditation classes, or Mary in your singing classes, maybe they're and might struggle with that, or society at large, more people perhaps than the average put up a little bit of a blocker or attribute a lot of pain to that looking inwards. Would you have anything that came to mind in terms of how you could go from that position of feeling quite resistant to that introspection to starting to feel more comfortable doing it?
Hugely. Yeah, definitely. I think it's a huge blocker for people. They can, whether they just are so not used to doing that sort of thing, or being creative in that way, or they want to do something for themselves and they're just going to try this, to see if it works for them. I mean, the hardest part is showing up, I think, a lot of the time, and the hardest part is getting people through the door. Once they've come through the door, whether it's a Zoom door or a real door, that's it, they're in the room, and at least you've got an opportunity to hold their hand and show them, and guide them on the way. And if they're open to it, they're open to it, and if they're not in the moment, they're not. Maybe in a year, maybe in 10 years time, maybe in 20 years, then they'll come back and they'll be like, wow, I wish I'd given it a go back then, but it just wasn't the time. And it's about not putting that pressure on people as well. I think is a big part of it, because for me in my journey, it was definitely a slow evolving process. When I went to London and did I was studying music there and singing and performing, I was getting so frustrated, and I didn't really understand diaphragmatic breathing, allowing my belly to be nice and soft, and just I thought I should hold it in, and squeeze it and look good for my gigs, and things like that. And my teacher would grab my stomach and just be like, I can't feel it moving, and get so frustrated with me. Like, what are you doing? Why aren't you breathing properly? And I just didn't get it at the time. I got so frustrated. I was like, why are you making me feel so bad? I don't understand. So, and then it wasn't until I started doing singing for breathing and actually did the training in singing for lung health that you kind of start connecting to that. And actually it comes with practice. It really, really does. And I'm still developing my own practice a couple of years later. So, everybody, linking back to what we said at the start, it's a journey for everybody. And for some people, it's just not the right time. Their mind is just not in the right place for it, or, not in a place where they're going to feel good about it anyway. So, it's just kind of letting people get there or not get there. They might go and try sewing, or they might go and try cycling or something else that really works for them. So, it's just, if they're called to come and give it a go, all we can do is hold our arms open and go, we're here, come and try it. If not, don't worry. So, it's kind of just letting people be on their own journey.
So much I want to touch on there, but on a very practical basis, I don't know if everybody knows, and I'm only an absolute novice, having read one breathing book, the diaphragm, it's spoke about a lot in this book. And I have the same issue of trying to do the breathing exercises, but also breathe into my stomach and feel like it's expanding. Again, I'm not an expert. Why is the diaphragm such a powerful, part of the whole breathing and singing piece?
It's a mystery, isn't it? The diaphragm. It's one of these amazing things. It's I think it's the second strongest muscle in the body, apart from your heart, I think, or the second hardest working muscle. But the funny thing is, we can't see it and we can't control it. So it's like a dome-shaped muscle just sort of underneath your ribs, that sort of area. And it separates the upper body, parts from the lower ones, like in your stomach and things like that. So yeah, it's this kind of dome-shaped muscle that when you breathe in, it drops down so that it can make room for the air to come in. So that's why we don't normally say breathe into your belly, because I feel like that gives people a funny idea, and they're like, oh, how the breath doesn't actually go there, kind of thing. But if we say, imagine that your breath is going to your belly, or just a nice low directional breath, then it's kind of allowing your abdominal muscles and those muscles that we can see, we can control those a little bit. So it's kind of bringing that awareness to those muscles and allowing them to be nice and soft, so that when we breathe in, we can expand and we can allow the diaphragm to drop down, and then the air can drop into the lungs as well. So it's like this container, we do it naturally. What's so funny is that we, when you look at babies, their tummies are going up and down when they're breathing, same as puppies, all that kind of low breath, it's so natural. And all we're doing is trying to help people readjust, maybe, so that their breathing patterns can go a little bit more back to how they naturally are. So it's not something that's like completely new to our bodies. We're just kind of giving our bodies the permission to relax and to connect to that again, that natural breath.
Yeah, well, that permission piece seems utterly fundamental, because what's natural is sort of environment dependent, and we talked about individualism and social media and loneliness, and like Maya touched on anxiety earlier. If you're anxious, again, from my very limited knowledge, exactly, it becomes all a bit shallow. And the difference between, I think we all become very used to that breath, which is why the kind of diaphragmatic breathing and breathing properly, or to your point, Mary, a bit more naturally, as thinking back into time when we weren't so stressed and anxious. It feels good, because it's a different animal to the really tight chest, throaty breathing that you do on a daily basis if you're worried about what emails you're going to get in the morning, or this project, that project. Your breathing is so indicative of your mental state, is that breath and mental connection. So again, I'm telling the experts things that they already know, but if you want to control your mind to some degree, control your breath.
Yeah, and getting that nice slow breath as well. It same as singing, because when you breathe out, you're singing phrases that are quite long, so you're extending your out breath, which is going to help in so many ways. And it helps to strengthen your lungs, but it helps to kind of activate I think it's the parasympathetic nervous system, so the one that's opposite to the kind of fight and flight mode, the one that tells us we're okay, we're calm, it's safe, and it kind of reassures you in a way that everything's okay. So if you are feeling anxious and your shoulders are up here, it's the first thing I would say is just try and relax your shoulders and try and unclench your jaw. And if you unclench your jaw, that's all connected to the throat, helps to open all that up, and it actually is connected to the diaphragm as well. So the more you can just be nice and open in your throat and your jaw, you can allow the breath to flow maybe a tiny bit more as well, and allow your diaphragm to kind of move in a more open and flowy sort of way. Yeah, it's amazing. Obviously, it's difficult when you are feeling anxious. You can't always just kind of harness that but it's something to practice. That's why when you've got a nice quiet moment and you are feeling calm, you can practice that breathing and try and connect to it.
Yeah, and that might be some of the power of singing, is that instead of feeling like you're going to a breathwork class or doing this really intentional stuff for your physical and mental health, you're doing all of those glorious, like, shoulders back, proper breathing practices, but you're doing it indirectly through
you don't even realize.
Yeah,
that's the beauty of it, isn't it? In a sense, and you're just enjoying the music and enjoying the songs and having a smile and having a laugh as well, so important. And you just don't, and then afterwards all the endorphins are released and you feel amazing, and you're just kind of like, wow, I've actually done something physically and mentally that has helped me now.
And that point about endorphins relates to a question that I wrote down, and it's a slightly wanky question, so it might not be the best ever for a podcast, but both singing and meditation, as we've already touched on, have this capacity to bring you to the present moment through one mode or another. But as you just touched on, the power of that, whether it's about presence or feeling good or feeling connected to or grounded, has a kind of half-life, until it all kind of run out, until you need to re-engage again. From your respective experiences, do you reckon singing and meditation are at all comparable on that kind of half-life?
I think this is something that comes to mind, is that there's such a pressure of people that it's like, in order to be present, it's meditation, and I have to meditate for 20 minutes a day, and I have to listen to this podcast by this monk, and I have to be interested in all these things. And for me, where my passion comes in, and it's, yes, I'm super passionate about meditation because the amazing experience it has had on me, but more so is my passion for mindfulness. And whilst, yes, they're interconnected and involved, sometimes I feel like it's important to separate, because mindfulness is such a actionable thing, like an everyday actionable thing. Meditation is too, for people that are experienced in it, or people that it comes naturally to, but not for everyone. When I first started meditating, it was not good. It didn't come easy to me when I first started either. But mindfulness, in terms of, for example, taking a mindful walk, like just being present on your walk, there's actionable things every day. And for me, a huge something I love to try and share with people is it's all about the daily habits, as opposed to like going on a retreat for a weekend. Yes, it would be an amazing transformative experience, and you would walk away being like, oh my God, I'm walking on clouds. But then you get back to the daily grind, and 2 days later, you're just as stressed as you were before. So it's about finding your own personal way, of what works for you. So for me, gratitude journaling, or doing those walks.
Isn't it perfect answer? I love the idea of delineating between mindfulness and meditation, one being a kind of action, one being the kind of broader macro goal that you're striving for. And I hate using words like striving and goal alongside mindfulness, if you excuse those terms. But what it makes me think of, there was despite the fact you were just saying, well, you don't have to listen to this podcast, I then go and immediately refer to a podcast. The High Performance podcast had a great sit down with Johnny Wilkinson, and he talks, obviously the former famous England rugby player, and he talks a lot about his journey on a mindfulness basis, and how he now sees anything as a mindful act, and he tries to instill that in the other athletes that he works with, who can be obsessed about triathlon, for example. And he's like, well, what's a triathlon? And they're like, oh, what's a triathlon? And he's like, oh, it's a swim, and it's a run, and it's a and it's a cycle. He's like, no, it's like motor skills used to achieve a goal. So therefore, what's the washing up? It's the same. It's motor skills to achieve a goal, and you can attack any of them mindfully if you're just there in the moment, and therefore anything is capable of being quite meditative. It's not just the sitting down and the chanting on a chair or whatever, and perhaps the relatively short-term moment that is, you know, it's been powerful in my own life to just see anything as, you know, capable of being a mindful act.
It sounds a bit, oh sorry,
go.
I was just going to say, it sounds a bit cheesy, but I think there is deep beauty in so much, even in the mundane, you know. And we forget that it's there, and we are living these, you know, harder, faster, better, stronger lives, you know, that you just don't slow down and notice it. So for me, I think it's just bringing that attention and allowing your attention to just be there. That's why when you're meditating or when you're singing and you're focusing on your breath, you're focusing on your body, you're focusing on how you feel in the moment, or allowing yourself to just kind of just be in the moment, and then the focusing comes just from that, you know, kind of thing. So it's so important to connect to that, and to yeah, just experience it and come away like, wow, you know, that made me feel better, and that made me, I think, going back to the half-life thing you were saying, I think it's kind of, it's a practice, and I think the more that you do it, the more invested you'll feel in it, and also you'll feel those benefits as well long term. I mean, with my Singing for Lung Health group, they've actually been to their lung function tests and been told that it's improved. And they'll say, you know, it's since joining this group and doing it every week and doing the exercises and yeah, dropping into it and connecting to it, and then doing the exercises in their own time as well at home. And yeah, it does, it's a ripple effect, I think, all this joy and all this connection and calm that we can bring people and that you can connect to, and yeah, I think it just continues the more that you allow it to continue.
No, 100 times over. And I love the thought about, you know, things being, everything is beautiful if you look at them closely enough.
Yeah.
Like on the No Wasted Days digital journal, I've got these little loading screens that just throw up a quote, and you know, one of them is from Constable, the famous English oil painter, and I'm not going to remember every word of it, but the thought is that, you know, everything is fundamentally beautiful, you know, with a bit of, you know, perspective, light and shades, you know, i.e. paying some attention, you know, giving it the attention it deserves, you know, there's beauty there. And also, speak on the cheesy front, I think I saved on Instagram, just citing other podcasts, saved it was Brian Cox, the kind of astronomer guy who was on Joe Rogan, and he talked about how we're all just these entities made up from the particles of dead stars, and we've got this kind of really small sliver of consciousness that we're experiencing, and yet people want more. You know, how much, yeah. You know, we can think and feel and act, and we're all just these particles and whatever. And it's like, you know, but yet we've created a society where we're comparing ourselves to other people all the time. And if we don't have as much as, you know, that person, then okay, well, my life is a failure, or my life is less worthwhile. And it's an absolute mess, because with the right perspective, and perhaps benefiting from some of the positive ripple effects and making some good mindful decisions, that beauty is everywhere. That presence, the power of now, all of that stuff is massive, absolutely massive. But the journey, to our broader point about a journey, getting people from perhaps where society has dragged them to a point where that mindfulness piece, that presence piece, that beauty piece is more common in more people's lives. Hopefully a needle I can somewhat try and move with No Wasted Days, but it's, you know, it's not so easy.
Yeah, so true. I love that. I'm going to give that a heart.
Heart up the lens. We're going back to our silent mind podcast.
You made me think of just one section, both of you, in both what you were saying. There was a section in my in the mindfulness course I did of just doing versus being, because there's also this thing of, yes, we do want to look for mindfulness and try and be more mindful, but it's not trying to deny that doing and having ambitions and things are bad, because they're great, they're good, they motivate us, they give us a strive and a hunger for life, and they're just as necessary. But it's like practicing going between the two. So we literally did an exercise where we went from, you had a piece of paper and you went from, I can't remember what the increments were, but I think it was like 10 or 15 seconds. You went from writing everything you felt like you needed to do that day or in the coming days, to then just trying to just switch off and just being in the moment. And it's such a fun tool to play with, and yeah, it's just a recognition that both are vital, but yeah, both are
No,
necessary in aiding our
yeah.
experiences.
I threw my hands in the air because I don't think that's a thing that enough people appreciate, or even just a set of terms that people feel comfortable and aware enough to use, just doing and being, because they can feel like they're on two different ends of the same spectrum, but also your being is expressed during your doing. Pick any performer there, or any footballer, any person doing anything. There are some people that do it and they exude these values of compassion or collaboration or whatever, these things that express parts of their being. And there's some people that would do exactly the same activity and do it in a very kind of perhaps a less holistic, nice way. And it's such an easy framework once you get your head around the idea. No, it's massive, doing and being. I love that.
I love that quote. I can't remember who said it, but it's like, we are human beings, not human doings.
Yeah.
Such a nice
yeah. No. It's finding that healthy balance, isn't it? Because like you say, Maya, it's so healthy to have goals and ambitions and things that you want to do in life, but it's allowing yourself to slow down and take it one day at a time as well. And I recall that little picture where there's a person at the bottom of a ladder and they can't reach the first step on the ladder. It's really high up, and then there's loads more steps, and they're just kind of like, oh, that's it, I'm never gonna get up there. But there's a person next to them with their ladder and they've got little tiny steps, and they're like, you just take the small steps, don't envision that you have to be there already. See yourself where you are now and allow yourself to just make those small steps, even if it's one tiny thing every day. And I remember it, being like that coming out of drama school. It's kind of like, and you're kind of revisiting it now, Maya. It's like approaching, auditions and show reels and voice reels and things like that. It's like, if you just do one tiny thing every day that contributes towards this goal, then you'll get there. And it doesn't matter how long it takes. It's about going on your own journey and just, feeling it out and being there and experiencing it as well, not seeing a huge step and thinking, how do I get there? It's one thing at a time, one day at a time, one breath at a time. How about that?
No, that's perfect. And it's perhaps a good technique, generally speaking, for avoiding some of the, because obviously, if you see a goal as too daunting, too large, then it's easy to default to, being less self-assured, less self-aware than just, you've expressed a set of ideas that, people will perhaps know in the back of their minds, but they don't use them enough as techniques and tools for being more self-assured and self-aware. You can't climb a mountain in a single bound.
No, Rome wasn't built in a day. Isn't that a quote as well? It's just with the society that we live in, there's so much pressure to get things done soon. And people just don't have that patience anymore. I feel like, it's not as prominent in society to be like, slow down and, you'll get there. Just kind of do what you need to do and keep working hard and keep, doing what you can and under what you can control as well. And then also, like we were saying earlier, luck and, being in the right place at the right time, all of that comes into it as well. So it should all just kind of melt together eventually, and you get there. You just do in whatever way you're supposed to get there, you get there.
Yeah, well, or at least the thought about you'll get there, I think is kind of a tricky one, because the point of being mindful and taking things steadily and etc. isn't that it will guarantee you the outcome that you want. It's more that you, in the moment, you won't trade your joy and happiness and contentment for whatever that happens to be. That's what I feel is the promise of mindfulness and engaging and introspecting and whatever. Is like, who knows what the outcome's going to be, but you're taking care of the variables as best as you can, and you're being as joyful and as mindful as you possibly can on the route to doing it. Because some people, on the route to an outcome or a goal, will feel terrible constantly, and then either it will happen or not happen, and either they'll continue to feel terrible, or they'll have this kind of brief relief when the thing actually plays out. But you don't have to live life that way. If like, through everything we've said about beauty and presence and mindfulness and whatever, moment to moment, take care of, control what you can control, and be here, and then, hey, the thing will play out the way it plays out. But well, at least that's
the wording of, I don't know what the alternative is, but I know that
yes, exactly. That's part of the problem with a lot of this.
The wording of goals is also such a questionable one, because there's this, I had this thing, like, I was reading about it, I wish I could remember the name, but my partner read something where something he like was really, really working and striving towards had happened. And instead of obviously being over the moon, as most people would expect, he like got quite down. And it's just like, and I started reading about it, it's like this, it's a certain type of depression where it's just like, because you had placed so much of your energy and pressure of getting that thing, then it's like, oh, well, what do I do now? And it's like this thing, it's like this thing of setting, I'm trying to think of an alternative word, but maybe it's more like aspirations or motivations. It's just trying to make it not an end place, make it more of a moving journey and a constant thing. And that's where the mindfulness comes into play, and carrying it through, like, rather than being like, oh, at 30 I'm going to be this and have this and do that. It's more just like obviously we need aspirations and dreams, but honoring the journey, I guess, and honoring your own way of traveling through life rather than getting to an end place. I don't know if you guys think of any words, but it always listen to people saying, don't say goals, don't use the word goals, it's just
Or I love it, I love that. I love that you've said that, because it's like, even if you just use the word goals, you just acknowledge that everything is a beginning, both an end and a beginning. So don't be motivated by getting to the end of something, but don't kid yourself it's the end of everything. There will be another beginning that follows that end. So be ready ahead of time to kind of load yourself up for that new beginning. And hopefully that's, that marries the power of having the motivation of an end point and a purpose and an objective, but also the mindfulness and the circumspection that, okay, that isn't going to be it forever. Like, there will be stuff that exists beyond that. And I look forward to what those new beginnings might be. That's at least what came to my head.
Exactly. And again, it sounds a bit cheesy, but the hard parts are almost just as important as all the good stuff that happens along the way. Because you can be so down, like, and have moments where you're like, am I doing the right thing? Like, is this actually working? Am I actually reaching anybody with the work that I'm doing? And anyone that works in that creative or holistic field, feels that, I think, because the need is so there, but sometimes people are hesitant, or don't feel ready to try it, or you feel like you're not reaching enough people, or doing enough, or being enough. Again, relating to that feeling of comparison maybe, and I could be doing more, and I should be doing it better, and I should do more training, and I should do more this, and I should do more. So it's just remembering as well that those hard moments are so important, because they're there to help us in a way. Like, they're there to kind of to reassure us that we care, and that we are, it's a hard journey, but
it's no flowers. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And also being what's it called? Like, if you're rejected, some people might say rejected from something or from a job or whatever, it's actually just redirection to somewhere else. So I think it's really nice to try and remember that. I know it can be so hard, it's easier said than done, but that's something I've definitely learned. And going back to the reassurance and self-assurance and self-awareness diagram, like from before COVID, because I was under the line, I feel like I'm learning this now, which is why I'm just above the line now, I think, in terms of self-assurance. Still a long way to go, but we're going.
That couldn't be more on point, I think. again, we're in a society that prizes convenience and ease and availability, and therefore by accident kind of alienates kind of the hard times or the harder work or the I hate to say suffering, but there's some effort that's constructive that feels like suffering, but you know what I mean. But also it's so hard to tell what the good or bad thing is in the moment that you're existing. There's a random kind of apocryphal thing that I've heard a few times of it's like a cowboy and his son, or I might be butchering this, but like they're out in the fields and they come across some wild horses and they bring these horses back to the village town, and everyone's like, oh wow, you got these new horses, isn't that good? And the cowboy is like wise enough to go, well, we'll see. And then whilst kind of breaking in the horses the following day, the son who's doing it falls off and breaks his back. And so the people in the village hear this and they're like, oh god, that's bad, isn't it? He broke his back. And the cowboy's like, well, we'll see. But then the next day there's some conscription. There's people that need to go into the military, and the son, because he's broken his back, he can't do the military thing. So then again the villagers are like, well, that's lucky, isn't it? He doesn't have to go into the army. And then the guy's like, oh, well, we'll see. And it obviously goes on these loops, because you should be mindful and circumspect enough to not just prescribe things as good or bad as they're happening, because you don't know. The things that are tough that happen to us at times are the things that, to your point, Mary, that are the most kind of biggest sources of our growth. And then in retrospect, we're like, oh, that wasn't fun at the time, but I'm not sure I'd have had it any other way. But yeah, we could just quickly judge things as bad or good.
100%. Yeah.
But anyway, there's definitely, for anybody that wants a slightly better telling of that story, I think there's about 50 of them that exist on YouTube somewhere. So I'll link it into the show notes so you don't have to cope with mine. Do you have any stories you could share from your space in the world that speak to where we are as a society with self-assurance and self-awareness? Does anything come to mind when I throw that thought out there?
I don't know why, and I don't know if this is on the right track, but for some reason social media just pops into my head. I think because working in the kind of industry we do, like all of us, I'm sure we've experienced this, like the way the world is moving, everything, like if you don't have an Instagram account, you don't exist, kind of thing. And people want accessibility straight away. And I literally live life in such a battle with it, because it's amazing. It creates opportunities. It has, in the past few years, really raised awareness on key things of meditation, mental health, well-being, and all that stuff. But also, it's one of the biggest triggers and one of the biggest causes. So I don't know. I think I'm still on my own journey as well of figuring out where we are, but definitely I feel like the conversation is bigger and larger and more accessible and available, as we see by so many people choosing careers or things in holistic and well-being places, which is amazing.
It's funny that came to your mind, because that was exactly what came to Sam's mind in the first podcast too. And obviously he was looking at it through a little bit through a frame of advertising, but more just a broader kind of society point about, is social media the cause of lots of our suffering, or is it a symptomatic of where we are in terms of what we want and how we engage and how we treat each other and how we look at each other? And his point was, it's often thought of a cause, but it's also sort of symptomatic too, of a kind of suffering mindset, a comparative mindset, all these things that actually, any person who knows near enough anything about mindfulness and meditation, these are things you want to avoid, not things you want to build platforms with billions of people on. So it's funny that came to your mind too, Maya.
Yeah, and again it relates to the loneliness theme, because you can be looking at your social media and feel like you have loads of friends, or like everybody's all connected and all this stuff, but the truth is it can make people feel more lonely, because, you know, then again the comparison creeps in, you know, and it's comparison is such a thief of joy that, you know, you then feel, oh, actually maybe I should be doing that, or I should be doing this. Yeah, it's a funny one, Maya, like you say, because it's so helpful, but then it's also a hindrance as well. So yeah, I think it's just about using it in a way that works for you as much as you can. And yeah, I know ladies, I did a training in singing mamas recently, and you know, a few of them are older ladies that have kids already and things like that, or they already work in kind of providing music sessions for kids and things like that. But they want to do this, which is all about mums and women. So it's kind of inviting, you know, that a singing group just for them, and they can bring their kids if they have them. And they kind of were saying, oh, I've never used social media, or, you know, how do I create a poster? How do I do this? How do I create a social media post? You know, and I've got to think of a name, and so you know, quite a few of these things are popping up, and it's great to see. And obviously we're all following each other, and you kind of support everybody with it. But it's kind of sad that people feel that pressure that they have to do it. Like, you don't have to do it, but then they are doing it because they feel like if they don't exist, you know, as a group or as a company or whatever it is that they're doing. And yeah, it's helpful to get the word out in many ways, but then it makes you feel so under pressure at times as well, and you just don't feel like you're doing enough, which is hard.
Yeah, it's such a bind, and if anything, we should do a NoWastedDays podcast which explores this one issue, because there's so many tangents and parts of it, and so many kind of like, well, if I move down this way, but it's kind of helpful but also not. But yeah, it's so difficult. I don't want to go down to this lane too much, but yeah, because like you said, Maya, I've had my own kind of like, I've come off it, I'm on it, I'm off it, I'm on it. Oh wait, I'm trying to do a thing that's putting thoughts into the world. Probably better have an account. To the degree it is a cause of issues, or a way of perpetuating people's loneliness, or making people worse off mentally, like I was thinking personally and selfishly about my own project. It's like, well, if I've got some good thoughts to put out there, some good techniques, some good activities, and there's people in the world, you know, pick your least favorite social media person, you know, Andrew Tate, any of these people, if they've got the gall to put their curious values and stuff into social media, then we need a few people like the people that tend to appear on these podcasts, you know, sensitive, engaged, smart people to help, you know, because maybe, you know, there's one thought that's comes out from these first 4 hours of podcast that helps one person. I feel that's worth the time and effort then.
Yeah, you know, and then it contradicts the idea of feeling like I'm not reaching enough people. It's like, well, actually, if you just reach one person, in a way, your job is done, you know.
Yeah. And I think to that point as well, on a kind of self-assurance basis, because I think, yeah, as we've just touched on, you know, and I definitely feel you, Mary, in terms of like, well, is my message reaching enough people? Because I've started, you obviously creating content for this and getting it out there, and you see some of the numbers, but like, I try and come right back to myself. So it's like, am I controlling the variables as best as I can? Is this helping me and perhaps the direct kind of caucus of people that this reaches? Yes, and that's success to some degree. You know, if I've made even just myself better off and nobody else worse off, that's success. And then anything after that, whether, you know, the journal that I've created has a million users or not, all of that other stuff is sort of gravy. It's sort of extra after that initial moment of success. If I've created a little positive and no negative, then that's success. That feels like success to me. But it's not like you know, startup success, Forbes magazine, blah blah blah. But I feel successful, and I think that helps me feel more assured.
Yeah, you're putting good into the world, that is success. If anyone can get to the end of their lives and think, I did what I could and I put some good out there, amazing, you know, that's it.
Yeah, and be aware enough of any potential downside. You know,
Yeah.
it's something I've been super conscious of with what I'm doing from the very beginning, and it's obviously it's not really reaching anybody in a big way at the moment, but like on the journal that I've created, I've also created this short course called The Art of Looking, because it's like the diary format is built around this kind of great mindful diary piece, but also there's some data and some insight. And there was that chance that the data and insight could be triggering to people, because it's kind of weird to see how you feel or what you've done kind of played back to you. And I would hate to think that somebody saw that or was exposed to that without sufficient context or information, and then end up to your point of being triggered and then being worse off. You have to be confident that you're doing something good, not just, give yourself an apparently appreciative pat on the back because it seemed like it was good. It's tough because you never know what the exact effects of what you're doing are. But on a self-awareness basis, if you can introspect well enough to go, I'm pretty sure that was good, and I'm pretty sure if it was bad, it would have been bad in these ways, and I've tried to mitigate that.
I have a story about that. Obviously you
Perfect.
don't have to include it, but I have a story related to that, because I've done a couple of short courses with an organization in Cambridge, and they run courses for adults who live with maybe mental health difficulties or just a variety of different societal problems. And they come to the group because they apply for it and they know what it's all about and they know what the course is, and they can do any other subject. They do art, they do drama, they do dance, they do you can do I think at one point they were doing pottery and things like that, and then I turn up going singing. And I think they were all a bit like, oh my god, okay, well, we'll try it and see. And it's a very natural voice perspective, and I was very welcoming to everybody in the room. I never turned anybody away, and I feel like it's a container for community, the sessions that I run, and I wanted to kind of interpret that in this course that I was doing as well. So I had a real variety of people, really difficult to navigate at times, but I think there was one point where I shared a song with them that was called Everything Is Possible, and it's a really upbeat song, and it's got a few, because I felt the mood in the room was a bit low, so I was like, okay, let's do an upbeat song, let's get our heart rates going, let's have a little boogie, let's have some fun. So the song was Everything Is Possible, This I Know, I'm bountiful and free, that's what the words are. And it's really upbeat, everything is possible, this I know. This I know, this I know, everything is possible, this I know, I'm bountiful and free. And then it goes on, and they were really getting into it. It's a song by Leah Morris, love her, she's amazing. But yeah, so they were really getting into it, and there was one person in the room that was stinking as we were doing it, and I noticed them sort of declining in their chair and kind of moving further and further away, and they at one point they put their lyrics on the floor and they were like disengaging, making it very clear that they didn't want to partake in this particular song. But I had 10 people in the room that were singing, so it's really hard. And the group, what's magical about a group like this is that they can sense it as well, and the group kind of holds that and holds the person, without, it kind of nourishes the person. It just naturally, everyone kind of senses it, and they're like, okay, well, we're here for you, like letting you know. And we did stop because I just got to a point where I was like, I just can't continue, like, we'll come back to this song maybe, sort of thing. And this particular person who had shrunk away, and we opened up a discussion. I just felt like it was right. We didn't normally go into big long-winded discussions, but I just said, how is everybody feeling? Let's just share, how we're feeling in the moment. How's this song making you feel? Because for me, from a practitioner point of view, it's always great to ask as well how people are responding to something. And if you can feel that there's a negative presence about it, it's kind of like, oh, am I doing something wrong? Then the the committee in your head, starts telling you you're doing it wrong, you shouldn't have shared that, what are you doing, why are you, and there's a song for every situation, really. So I kind of thought, right, let's not do that, let's do this really slow one that we did last week, just to help us feel a bit grounded again, and come away from that feeling at the moment. But yeah, and then we went into a discussion, and this person did say, like, I don't relate to this song, it's not true, you can't say everything is possible. And in a way the group responded, and we had this discussion, and a few of them were saying, well, it's not about everything being possible, obviously, you can't fly, there's things that we can't do as people, but it's kind of implying that if you give your best and try and find moments of joy and moments of purpose, as you're going along, then you never know what you could achieve, is kind of what it's implying, really. So yeah, we just had a discussion, and I'm so glad that we did, because the group responded in that caring way, like they all came in, and it wasn't just me going, sorry, I shouldn't have shared it, like, kind of thing. And I wasn't made to feel bad. And I did say to my volunteer afterwards, we left the session, everybody was okay in the end, and it was just a little blip, it was a kind of, I don't connect with that, I don't want to do it, kind of thing. And then the group came in, nurtured it, it was okay. And then I said to my volunteer afterwards, I was like, should I have done that? I feel like I shouldn't have shared that song, it was too happy, maybe people are coming to this group that, they're not feeling great, they don't want to be told everything is possible, I can understand that when you're feeling really down, sometimes, like when you're feeling anxious, if someone just says, calm down, it's not, it's not helpful, is it? So, yeah, I don't know. But my volunteer just said, no, Mary, like, trust yourself and trust the music. And they still enjoyed it, even though they didn't connect with it, and they, kind of shut down. It was like this, no, I'm not going to continue, and I want to just talk about it. That was still just as important as sharing the song and having that group discussion, and knowing that the community there was so, in touch with how that person was feeling, and they all were going through their own things as well. So it was just like this, like I said before, like this container for community, and everybody just kind of rallied around each other, and we left all feeling okay and all feeling good, really. But yeah, my volunteer was like, please, don't feel like you can't share happy songs, because 10 people in that room loved hearing it, and maybe that particular person will go away and think about it and sing it a bit more at home, and maybe they'll connect to it, or maybe they won't, and that's okay. Like, don't worry, don't ever feel like it's you, trust that you're putting a good thing out there, and you're doing it for a reason. And if people aren't connecting that day, it's not on you, it's not something that you've done wrong. So yeah, I've definitely learned that. Sorry about the long story, but...
No, that's a fabulous example. It relates a little bit to a quote I wrote down earlier. It's like, the day you plant the seed is not the day you bear the fruit. And it's like, maybe you planted a seed just then, you forced a feeling that was inside this person just to come up to the surface, and maybe that will make it easier the next time, or that they will ruminate on the song. And then when somebody else is compassionate enough and creative enough and nice enough, like you are, to to offer them a similar thought or a similar handout, they might be a bit closer to taking it, because it's a wanky phrase, but I think we're all in different respects on like this threshold of understanding, or this spectrum of understanding. And sometimes when something happens, we're nudged over the critical mark, and then we seem to get it. And all the people in that room, apart from that one person, were clearly in a place where, as it relates to that concept that was embodied in the song, they were beyond the threshold of understanding, and therefore they were like, everything is possible, but that person, that you had the initial tough reaction, might have actually been nudged along massively on that, on that threshold. You just couldn't see it because it was internal, it was kind of held within inside. So you could have done an extraordinary amount of good. And you can't. I sometimes have the same dynamic. Something I've been obsessed about for some time is like values in the workplace and team cultures. And you sometimes get the same reaction from people when you try and talk about those things, or you talk about values, because people can be a bit skeptical or a bit cynical about what their role is. But actually, if you embody them properly, because like you would have embodied the positive qualities of that song above and beyond just singing it. And if you can do that time and time again, then eventually even the people that are lower down on the threshold of understanding, they'll move up, and eventually they'll get it. It might be 6 months later, it might be 12 months later, it might be 18 months later, but it's like you're getting closer every time that you do that gracious, compassionate, authentic thing. And that is why, speaking of long-winded answers, that's why you should keep being authentic and being kind and being singing those happy songs.
Don't change what you are doing because of that reaction. Like, it's, in a way, that was maybe an important thing to happen, because we then got some emotions out, some tears were shed. There was a real sharing in the group when we had that little group discussion afterwards, that I just thought that was essential in itself. So whatever happened, whether they sung the song or not, there was something was released, something came up for them, like you said, and it's all part of the healing process. And hopefully that's so true. I just love that.
And it's sort of true on the flip side too, is like that person's skepticism and cynicism about everything being possible might have been a nice antidote to other people in the room who were like so perpetually optimistic and positive, but they did that to a fault as well. They weren't skeptical or cynical enough. They everything they saw was with a rose tinted glasses and da 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 da. But and which is often a positive thing. But if you do it constantly, and it betrays other things that you're avoiding, then it's sort of negative. So it could have benefited people in reverse.
Word
Fabulous
screams out as well. It does. And also just wanted to say intention as well. Like, important thing to remember in those sorts of situations is your intention has always been good, and you are there, like your intention for doing that's always good, always is good. And it might not hit right to certain people, it's not right or wrong, but it might not hit in the expected way, let's say, as most people do. But like we said, it's created feeling, and that's in the end kind of what your hopes were for that session, to connect to some kind of feeling. And it's just important to remind yourself, yes, maybe that person didn't sit quite quite well with them, but it did instill a feeling, and you were authentic. And by staying authentic, people will connect to that. And like Richard said, they might climb up that ladder, because by you staying at your level of authenticity, they'll be like, oh, okay, this is Mary, and this is what I get from these sessions, and this is what she's trying to help us achieve.
Exactly.
That's such a good story.
I think that intention piece is so fascinating, and I can understand why you've mentioned it, because it's such a key pillar to mindfulness and meditation. And it's often the bit about it that I forget to do. When I'm meditating, I focus on my breath and the presence of it. I often forget to do the intentionality bit. But it is so powerful. And it also sort of ties back to what we were just talking about. Like, I am not a worldly wise philosopher, but I did once have this quote that I came up with, which was, there's no such thing as good and evil, there's just good and good intent. Because I think everybody, regardless of who you talk to, people are well intended in what they do. It's just that their intentions and the direction of their energy has got just a bit wild and off course with what actually the fundamental tenets of a joyful, connected, holistic life are. I remember reading it in a book once that Al Capone, when defending himself in court, was saying he did everything he did in terms of hardcore crime to defend his family and community. And it's like, so he was well intended in what he was doing, but just the actions had gone so far beyond the kind of nature of his intentions. But getting to a place where you're introspective, and I often use the thought of being honest and empowering. You should empower yourself by taking certain perspectives and belief, but you can't trade that for honesty. you do have to be engaged with what the actual effects of your perspectives are, or your actions. And you can do those two things together. Then it's not a sub-zero game, a zero-sum game even, where you're trading honesty for empowerment. You can be maximally honest and maximally empowering. But again, people, it's not an easy thing to do, but it's so fucking valuable if you can, because then you're true to a situation, but also true to your, intentions, your best laid intentions, back to the original thought.
I'm waving my hands in the air.
Yeah. But
I'm so glad you said the word empowering. I was like, oh, that is exactly what you want. You want to hold that space for well-being and empowerment. That's, because giving people empowerment is like, I don't know, for me, it's like, here you go, here's your power. It's literally like handing it to them and being like, you've got this, and you've always had it. You might have forgotten that you had it, or you might have lost it, or you might have, your intentions were elsewhere or whatever, but this is your moment to kind of hold it again. And this is what you can feel in the moment. It's yours. And whatever that person was feeling, if they didn't connect to something in a session, that's okay. That's why holding the space is so important. Just that idea of holding that space, and it doesn't matter what comes up for people, because they are empowered to feel exactly how they feel in that moment. And whether it's, feeling really down or needing to express that emotion, or, even with music, it can be upsetting, and it can be triggering, and tears can just flow. I cry all the time when I'm singing sometimes. So, I'm kind of like, that's fine. And you can all do that too. And we can all hold the space for each other. So it's that empowerment to feel whatever is there in the moment, whatever it is, no matter what. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah. No, it's important, and it's important that it's not, doesn't get relegated to being this kind of fluffy word where it's kind of all just false positives and pats on the back and rah rah rah. It's like, it's this bigger idea than that. It's a space you're creating of safety and trust and engagement and introspection, that life doesn't always give you. And in the aggregate, if you can do that for someone, but also somebody else can do that for somebody, someone's chance of, looking inward, being self-assured and self-aware goes up massively. I don't want to speculate too much, but if you lose those empowering spaces in the aggregate, if your friends can't empower you, if your family can't empower you, if your school can't empower you, blah, 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 then no wonder you get, in a weird place mentally. But, so we should never feel bad using the words empowering or empowerment, because it's a big aggregate in society, and people that can do it, to our point about, well, should I use social media or whatever? Hey, if you can empower people, in physically or digitally, maybe consider doing it.
Yeah.
Because people need it.
Yeah. The need is so strong. I actually heated my coffee up because I had a tiny bit left. Well, a couple of mouthfuls left.
Yeah, I have to do that constantly, because I'll make a cup of tea and then just either forget about it or be so just consumed with what I'm doing. I'm like, then I'll turn to it. It's like, oh, I've got tea. Oh, it's ice cold. Welcome back to the NoWastedDays podcast. We've all just had a wee, and I've got some more water or coffee. But yeah, my next kind of question is one of the kind of spine questions of this format, which is, could you share a technique or activity that someone could try to either dramatically or incrementally improve their self-assurance or self-awareness?
It'd be nice to do a little very simple breathing meditation. So we're all already sitting, but if you want to just adjust yourself into a comfortable seat, maybe you want to take a quick roll of the shoulders, quicken the neck, before settling into however is comfortable for you today. Do try and make sure you keep your spine nice and straight so that you remain relaxed but alert throughout the process. And just notice the points of contact of your body and the seat beneath you for a moment here. Letting your hands fall naturally onto your lap or wherever they want to sit. And on your next exhale, if you haven't done so already, gently close down your eyes. bringing yourself into the present. Consciously ask your body to relax here. Relax your shoulders, neck, soften your jaw, soften your eyebrows. Trying to let go of any worries, plans for the day ahead. Welcoming stillness into the body and quietness into the mind. Start to bring your attention onto your breath, just letting it be in its own natural rhythm. Notice how it feels flowing in and out of your body. Notice where you feel it most. Perhaps in the nostrils as you breathe in, maybe in the chest, belly. Now I invite you to slowly start to deepen that breath, feeling the air filling up your lungs, breathing into belly, ribs, chest, and exhaling fully. Inhaling a sense of peace and calm, any stress or tension. You find your mind starts to wander. Try to approach this in a non-judgmental way. Just notice the thoughts, accept them, and let them pass. Treat them like clouds in the sky of your consciousness. And then gently guide your attention back onto your breath. Let your breath be your see if you can breathe into any areas that might be feeling particularly tense today. Visualize those areas expanding with your breath, causing them to loosen and surrender. This is your time. You deserve this time. You deserve to feel relaxed. Nothing to do but to spend a moment with your breath. Practice comes to a close. I invite you to take one last big, deep inhale in and exhale, sigh everything out through the mouth. Bring yourself back into the room by noting those points of contact with your body and the seat once more. Feeling the fingers, toes, and whenever you feel ready, you can gently open your eyes, taking comfort in knowing that your breath is always there, bring you into the present moment whenever you may need.
That was immaculate. That was so good. I've not done many kind of personally led meditation things. I'm so used to doing the kind of Headspace app, and I'm so fucking used to what the guy says at this point. But to have you say other things about surrender and deserving it, and you know, like, it makes it so much more kind of like, oh, that was perfect. I loved that.
I'm glad you liked it.
Move into a little thing maybe now.
Wait.
Are you ready? If we're going to do it now, I would advise that we just pop you guys on mute, if that's okay. So selves, or I have the power. Oh no, I don't have the power. Richard has the power. Yeah, can I invite? There you go. Nice. Okay, lovely. So yeah, now we're nice and calm and centered and rooted and grounded, and connected as well to the breath now. Let's just place our hands on our lower belly. So just showing your belly some love. Just pop your hands there, and just see if you can notice the feeling of when we breathe in, just allowing your belly to be nice and soft, letting it expand, and then as we breathe out, a sense of softening and returning as your tummy moves back in towards your spine, ready to release again. We'll just take a couple more slow breaths. And noticing if you can relax your jaw, and seeing if that relaxes your belly a tiny bit more. And I'd like you to picture your breath now like an ocean wave, rising, cresting and falling. And just noticing how it feels. So we're completely meeting ourselves without any judgment, just noticing. And on your next out breath, we'll do an ocean wave breath on a shh sound. So we're just inviting a little bit of sound now, and holding as long as you can. We'll do a few of these in a row. Here we go. And letting your breath drop back in. Lovely, let's do one more. Great, and this time we're going to add a little bit of a singy sound. So we're going to add a she. So we're just holding a she sound, nice and soft, nice and gentle. Just let your voice come out in its own way. Here we go. And then letting the sound dissipate, is that the word? Dissolve into the universe somewhere. Lovely. Let's do just a nice little hand rub. Let's just get some movement going, some heat in the hands. Lovely. And then we're going to flick our fingers at the screen, imagining you've got some water on the end of your fingers, and just going to aim it at somebody or flick it around the room. Just shake it off, letting that tension go. Lovely. And then we're going to shake our arms up above. Lovely, shaking off the fingers, and then we'll stretch our arms as high as we can. Reach with the fingers, and take a nice deep breath in here. And then a big stretchy yawn out. Oh, lovely, very nice. That always feels so good. And if you can do a real yawn, even better, you know, just kind of releases everything. Fabulous. Let's do some very gentle humming. So we're just going to hum up a scale and then hum down, really soft, really gentle, really nice and relaxed in the jaw. So that's where we'll start. And you can obviously pick a different note if that feels good for you. But I'm going to start here. So we're going to go up 5 notes and come down, nice and gentle. Lovely, then we're going to move up a little bit. Lovely, feel the buzzing in your face. Lovely, let's go up again. Let's do one more. Lovely, and for a bit of fun, let's do some lip trills or a lip buzz. So just releasing that sound. You can use your fingers to prop your lips up if you like. And again, just exploring, having some fun with it. Just seeing where your voice can go today. And a little bit technical now, but because that's a semi-occluded vocal tract exercise, which means it's got that closure or partial closure of the lips, the breath has to work super hard to get out for that. So we're really using those muscles. Lovely, nice. Let's reach up from the ceiling and we're going to grab an ooh sound from somewhere really high to somewhere really low. Ooh, and we're mixing it in the pot of sound. Ooh. Lovely. With the other arm, let's grab an E. Lovely, and then an R with the other arm. Gorgeous. And one more ooh, here we go. Ooh. Fabulous, nice. Good to see that movement as well. It's just nice to marry the movement with the voice. Talking of melodic mantras, I've got a little song to share with you, which is, the words are from Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, and I've written like a little kind of song, a melody to go with them. And the words are simply, I have arrived, I am home. So it's the medicine words, you know, they're the kind of words you can say when your energy is feeling a bit scattered and you're feeling a bit disconnected. So just saying to yourself, I have arrived, I am home, whatever that means for you in the moment, whether that's using your breath as a new arrival every time you breathe in and breathe out, or you know, just feeling like you've arrived in your body, or re-arrived if you like. So I'll just pop my speaker on as well. So the main part of the song, there's a little kind of harmony as well. I can maybe teach it to you briefly. But the main part goes like this. I'll just sing it first for you, have a little listen, and then let it settle. And when you feel ready to join in with me. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I am home, I am home. So that's the whole thing. Should we break it down line by line? So I'll sing the first bit and then sing it back to me. Here we go. I have arrived, I am home. Your turn. I have arrived, I am home. Next line. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. Third line. I have arrived, I am home. Here we go. I have arrived, I am home. And then we just come down. I am home, I am home. Your turn. I am home, I am home. Lovely, all the way from the beginning, placing your hands on your heart. Let's sing it through a couple of times. Here we go. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I am home, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I am home, I am home. How are we feeling? Show me some thumbs or some arms.
Oh, that's so lovely. And it makes me think of what you said earlier, because you said with the mantra deck, sing them. And you can quickly see how that takes an affirmation to the next level.
Yeah,
It's a
because you're
little
both
bit more
in that way. Yeah,
it's a little bit more vulnerable. It's a little bit more the frequencies are different from your prose just talking out loud. It's different to make the notes and slide up there's a reason that the certain chord changes and note, I'm going to forget the word now, but the gaps between the notes are satisfying in different ways or produce different feelings and emotions. It's like, that is just so good. I love that so much.
Do you want to hear the harmony part?
Yeah, fuck it. Let's if we've all got time, I'm 100% up for it.
Yeah, it's really simple. It follows the same kind of movement of the song. So we started on I have arrived, and the higher part kind of lingers around a top note, so it lingers up here. I have arrived, I am home. So it comes down on home, then it jumps back up. I have arrived, I am home. So home is just slightly different notes. Shall we try that from the beginning, those two lines? Here we go. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. Lovely. Then you can probably sense where it's going. And we're going to go up a little bit again. So we've got I have arrived, I am home. I am home, I am home. So we go up and then we fall back down again like at the beginning. Let's try the higher part all the way through, and then we'll maybe do it with the recording as well, so you can kind of let it settle inside you a bit more. So from the top, the higher part, so we're up here. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I am home, I am home. You got it, you got it. Let's try it with the recording because it's so pretty all together. Where are we? I have arrived.
For my own benefiting from vulnerability, I will try and share the recording into this mic, which is obviously, whilst we're muted, we can only hear Mary.
Oh,
But
yes.
I'll try and include my own, just in case anybody else was feeling a bit too, self-aware about their own singing ability. They can be empowered by hearing what I'm putting out.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Anything where we can hear your voice would be amazing. So yeah, let's mash these two parts together and let the song settle in you, hug it in, enjoy it. I have arrived, I am home. Here we go. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I am home, I am home. Here comes the harmony. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I am home, I am home. Pick your part. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I am home, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I am home, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I have arrived, I am home. I am home, I am home. There you go, my gift to you.
That's so good. I literally love that so much. That's ridiculously both, that's everything you want. It's it's mindful, it's enjoyable, it's vulnerable, it's fun. It's just, that is the bee's knees. I love that. Well done, Mary. That is such a, and also the fact that you've kind of combined the Thich Nhat Hanh thing with your own melodic kind of pattern. Massive. I hope I hope anybody out there who listens to this enjoys that as much as I did. Perfect. That was immaculate. How would you say singing or mindfulness, meditation, respectively, has helped your own self-awareness and self-assurance? Purely on the positive side, how do you think it's helped both of those kind of qualities?
Well, I think meditation, by definition, it's a retraining of attention, and it is a looking inward. And when you meditate, you become an observer as opposed to a victim, a witness as opposed to a victim. And that's why I definitely have found self-awareness and self-assuredness through that, because you can see yourself from a different perspective, which is so important sometimes, especially in times where you're really feeling in the thick of it. Because the misconception is that meditation is no thoughts and you sit in silence and nothing passes through and you are zen and sitting on a cloud, but it's not. It's the opposite. It's a million thoughts racing through, especially for anyone like me that is an overthinker or has an anxious kind of mindset. And it's learning to observe it as opposed to feel like you're jailed by these thoughts. It's more you just see them passing through. And I said in the meditation, yeah, there's a few nice ways you can think about it. Clouds in the sky of your consciousness, or my first one that my teacher taught me was imagining it like a train station, a bit like a busy train station. You're at King's Cross. The trains have to come and go. That's how a train station works. They come, but then in 2 minutes they're gone again. So that's definitely helped. And then for me also, because that's more kind of self-awareness for me, but self-assuredness, like I feel my most comfortable and confident self when I feel in unison with my mind, my body, and my soul. And that for me is most often, it definitely is meditation as well, but like movement for me, like stretches where I need a physical aspect. So even dance for me, dance is definitely a form of meditation for me. So somewhere where I'm uniting those things, that's where I really feel like, oh, I am me and I feel connected and I'm one, as opposed to feeling like my mind is my enemy. It's like we're all working as one.
Yeah, I absolutely love the thought about being an observer versus a victim. Yeah, I just, after the first podcast, I've spent time really exploring something that we talked about, which is separating yourself from the work, which is inherently having more an observer role in your own actions and, you know, feelings, emotions, etc., than, you know, just seeing them as exactly yourself and, you know, having this whole kind of self-centric, perhaps victimized mindset. I love that you explained it so, you captured it so easily in words that I've spent a thousand plus words trying to describe it so simply.
I think in relation to that as well, like taking away the judgment as well has really helped me, and coming from a place, it's funny because I recently did a map of my singing journey, just out of, you know, interest to see where I've come from, and, you know, how the journey has changed. And obviously in 10, 20 years time I can do it again and be like, oh, I wonder, you know, how that's changed again. But it was so interesting because in my early childhood days I wrote joy a lot. You know, that word was there all the time. Like I had a Barbie karaoke, you know, I just sing around the house, annoy my family, you know, and just kind of just singing all the time and not worrying about how it sounded, and, you know, not trying to impersonate anybody, just doing it in my own way, and pure joy, pure, you know, complete joy. And then as, you know, you get older and you become, you know, teenager and adolescent, young person, like there's definitely more judgment there, like on yourself anyway. But I was having singing lessons and doing exams, so it all became about that, you know, and practicing and this, that, and the other, which is all important because, you know, you need to do the exams at the time, I suppose. But yeah, then going to uni, like going to drama school, having that judgment on you, you know, which is so, oh, it's just a whole other kettle of fish, that, you know, and you're fitting a mold, then, you know, you're trying to discover and create yourself as your own practitioner and as your own creative person, but then you're also aware that you are trying to fit in with what other people are doing and what other people want to do, and, you know, what your directors might be telling you to do, and all sorts of other stuff. And then, yeah, I think I kind of just didn't know where I was going with my singing journey at all. And then COVID happened, and I knew I didn't really want to perform. I knew that wasn't really me. I quite enjoyed it, but it wasn't the same connection that I felt to people. You know, it wasn't, something was missing for me. So I was like Googling, how do I do this, and how do I connect with others more using my voice, and looking at singing teaching, but then I don't want to tell someone how to do something. I didn't really like that idea either. So yeah, then I found the Natural Voice Network, and I found Singing for Breathing. Just started volunteering, you know, again, it's the whole sort of, oh, what am I doing? I'm not earning any money. Like, this isn't really, how is this going to help me? You know, but it feels like it's hard because you know you're volunteering for a reason, to get somewhere. But it takes time to get where you kind of are meant to be in the end. Anyway, I go off on a tangent. What was I saying? But yeah, then it came to the point where I am now, and that word joy has come up again. You know, it's like it's resurfaced. It's like it's come back, and that's what I'm doing my singing for now. It's for joy, and it's to connect with people, and it's that judgment has just kind of gone in a way. and if it's there, it's only subconsciously, and I try to kind of not think about it too much and just do it for the joy of doing it. So and feeling it and being it and allowing the songs to flow through me and to flow to others, by sharing them. So yeah, it's fascinating, really, isn't it?
Nice. That
minds change. Yeah.
Non-judgment is a huge word, and it means so much in this setting. I think it really is. It really does. It's so, yeah, so vital, and that's so beautiful that you come full circle back to joy.
Incredible. Yeah, and who knows where I'll be and who knows how long from now. So yeah.
it's an interesting kind of to sit on the judgment bit for a second before we jump into kind of a last couple of questions. It's like it's something that's so powerful to be so unjudgmental about your own life or indeed those of other people, but almost the thing that is hardest to do if you're a performer and a singer. Because every second somebody's judging you, whether it's an examiner or an audience member or a director or a fellow performer. There's that evaluation aspect, and to some degree it needs to be there on the basis of, if you're going to have a chorus, people need to be able to sing the harmonies or whatever. There's a little bit, but it can't become the be all and end all of everything. To your point, Mary, about doing all the exams, and you're like, what means is all of that an end to? Because if it's the exams and the academic achievement and the quality of the school, that's not a sufficient good enough end for me, particularly if it compromises joy. Like, all of that tuition should be a means to the end of joy, not to the end of whatever. Because if someone's good enough to be on the West End or be on Broadway or whatever, that will happen as a result of all of that tuition. But you're also going to suffocate a shit ton of people who were previously very, very happy singing to themselves with their Barbie karaoke, which is a crying shame. But yeah, it's like that awful dichotomy between the amount of judgment involved in the behavior, but also how powerful non-judgment really is.
And I think what Maya and I are both doing is kind of saying singing and meditation is for everyone, and yoga is for everyone. It's for every single body, and it's just kind of encouraging people and empowering people and reminding them that you don't have to be good. You can just do it because it feels amazing, and you come away from it feeling refreshed and calmer and more joyful, or something was released, whether it's emotions or you do it because of that. You don't do it for that end goal.
We touched on that quite a bit in the first podcast episode. It's like, prioritize pleasure. If you love yoga, regardless of your ability, if you love singing, regardless of your ability, do it. This isn't to say that this is a culture of medals for everybody and that there's no awards or high. It's not saying that. There is a place and a space for standards of excellence, blah 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 blah, but anybody should never suffocate themselves from doing a thing that they think they might love on the basis of whether they're good or not or whatever. Focus on your joys, know what you're optimizing for you in terms of your joy, and prioritize it. Make space for it, because your life will be transformed by doing it. I would say and it would be funny if that keeps coming up in these conversations, because that's 2 for 2 now. That's been a really important factor. What would be an ideal no wasted day? So the idea of not wasting a day, what would be that ideal one for each of you?
I can't help but think about what I was saying earlier, that it's so dependent on the mood and day, because like there's days where I agree I probably would be like, I just wish I could do nothing, but then there's also days that I wish I could, like, I don't know, spend time with my partner, then see my friends, and do this and tick all those little boxes and meditate and do this and do that. I think that's I don't know, I'm struggling with
no, I like that thought, actually. I don't think that's a thought that enough people articulate. that just waking up and going with your mood, you know. Maybe it's something we do instinctively, but I think it's more empowering if you say it out loud and you say it as a thing. It's like, if
and
your
also
mood
having the
is,
choice, because most
yeah,
days you're
exactly,
forced to get up
giving
for
yourself
work and do this
the freedom,
and
yeah,
having the choice to be like, hey, what do I feel like doing today? But definitely something outside. Like, I'm such an I love, like, I don't know, going for a walk or something in nature, flowers or something. I don't know, like, love anything that connects me to nature, always. But yeah, I think be kind to yourself as well, listen to your body, listen to your gut. What that would, be my ideal scenario, I guess.
No, Mary, I'll give you a second more to think about it, because I think there's lots of actually deeply wise stuff in what you've just said. Like, so much of our time we find ourselves double guessing our gut instinct or sacrificing our mood for some other thing. And what kind of signals are we ignoring, or joy are we pushing back, in the name of not just going, hey, the only thing I'm going to do today is wake up and listen to my body, or listen to my mood. We'd never write that down on a bit of paper, but it's probably the route to a shit ton of joyful days if you did.
And also ticking things off your to-do list, like, they might be boring things, but don't you feel amazing, like, when you've done, like, I know there's such a thing about not setting, you have to set realistic to-do lists. I always limit myself usually to about 3, and like actionable ones, but there's that feeling you get of like, oh, I completed that. That's also an amazing feeling. So it's also a great day.
It's hard because it's a simple question, but the answer is actually quite, you have to think about that quite a lot. I read something today and I actually shared it on my Instagram story. I think it said that it's impossible to waste time. You are just doing what you're doing and that's it, kind of thing. And I just thought, yeah, that's actually true. The amount of times we beat ourselves up, it's like, actually, you're just doing what you're doing day to day, one day at a time, and you can't waste time if you're doing that, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
Yeah.
No, it 100% does, and it's something we touched on in the last thing. And it's kind of the trapping of having a slightly vibey name to what you're doing, because No Wasted Days is not about this idea of not wasting time and being some kind of type A productive lunatic that all they do is set themselves goals and to-do lists and cram every minute full of some doing, when, as we've already explored, that being is very important, and that No Wasted Days is really about just capturing just enough information every day about what you are and who you are, so you can learn about yourself. Not letting that information go to waste is the no wasted part of the day, not, as Mary just touched on, this idea that you're wasting time by doing one thing or another, because that assumes we're all optimizing for the same one thing, which is being productive economic machines, like good capitalists that we should be. It's kind of stupid.
Exactly. And sitting with discomfort if things are feeling a bit rough or a bit crap at the moment, it's like things change and shift all the time, and it's just trying to remember that if you're true to yourself and your feelings and doing something every day that either connects you to others, whether it's talking to a partner or a parent or a friend or anything, that might, or seeing a dog, anything where you just feel like, oh, I feel a little bit better for that, and I don't think you're doing anything wrong or doing yourself a disfavor, if you can at least do one thing where there's some kind of connection, and you can feel good in some way, but not every day is good. And like I said, it's the just sitting with it and allowing it to be, and
remembering we're always students as well, right?
no, exactly.
We're always students, and we are gonna change so much. We will, what's it, every 7 years we've completely shedded ourselves and we're literally in a new body, but obviously we're going to change, and that's also something nice, like getting one, reading a book, or that's why reading is so nice, because getting that one little bit of new knowledge and power of our brain, there's always more to learn and unlearn and explore. So
Yeah, I love that. You know, to your point, Mary, of sitting in discomfort, and to your point, Maya, of being a student, you know, I try as much as possible to see things that happen to me as spiritual teachers. You know, it's like things are happening for you and not to you. Like all of that stuff, you know, is a powerful kind of perspective or frame change that helps you sit with discomfort more easily, or look at it in a kind of optimistic way, you know. Whereas if you're, yeah, it's easy not to do that, basically.
And if you can listen to yourself along the way and be kind to yourself, then yeah, you've got it.
Yeah. Preach, preach. This is set a podcast record for random hand waving. Okay, lovely. I love all that. Final question. You just touched upon earlier about things you've added into your life that are going to help you be a bit more kind of self-assured or self-aware, the gratitude journal, the mantra decks. Is there anything you feel that you've removed from your life recently? And we've touched on, you know, spending less time on your phone and stuff. So it could be something like that, or something a bit more esoteric. Anything that you've removed that has helped you be a bit more self-aware or self-assured?
In a way, this is something that I've added in order to remove it.
Okay, lovely. Yeah.
I learnt what boundaries are.
Oh, exciting. Yeah, I
In
like
the
that.
last few years, and how, you know, you can live in your own world. You know, we all do, and you can be in your own house, you know, imagining like metaphorical walls, and there's windows so you can see the outside, you can see other people, and there's a door, and you can open that door and you can invite them in, and you can also show them out. And it's like you know, it's just being in control of your own space. I think that's kind of what that's taught me. I'm still learning about it. But yeah, I added boundaries to my life, and I therefore removed certain things and certain people that were draining me of energy, or draining me of, you know, who I am authentically. And you know, it's just it's amazing how you can suddenly discover that you don't have to please everyone. And you can, you know, do what's right for you, and we know as much as you can without hurting other people, obviously. You know, but it's just staying true to you and your heart, and knowing that if you make the you know, right decisions for you, then everybody else in your life will benefit, you know, whether that person is being removed from your life or not, or whatever it is, you know, they will benefit too, because it just wasn't working in some way or another, you know. So it happens in relationships, it happens in work, it happens in everything that we do. So just for me, a big part of it was adding those boundaries and removing that aspect of my personality, or starting to try and, you know, not engage with it as much, the idea of people pleasing, and, you know, just constantly doing what other people thought I should be doing, if that makes sense, or feeling like, you know, doing what I want to do, you know, and bringing that true authentic self to my life.
Yeah, I'd echo that hugely. It's been super true in my own life too, having boundaries, because you can please people indirectly by saying no. In my early working life, as a kind of crude, you know, capitalist example, you know, I would bend over backwards and ignore every instinct that I had about whether something was right, you know, just to say yes to people in briefs, or in, you know, in meetings and whatever. And actually, I've learned the foibles of doing that, and the power that comes with actually setting far clearer boundaries about what I'm prepared to accept and what I need. And the byproduct is the people are actually happier in the end, you know, because they've got a better quality of work, or they've got a, you know, whatever the thing is. And it's come from me saying no, or, you know, to your point of letting them into the house and then letting them out again, you know, all that stuff is so true. And I've never thought of that as something you add to then remove. That's lovely. I love that.
I definitely agree. You do. I mean, Mary, I think you said it already once or a couple of times, but comparison is the thief of joy. So as much as we can try and stop that, then the better. But again, agree. Journey. It's always a journey. But it's interesting what you brought up about, you know, it being better for everyone involved. Actually, like, let's say, you know, you grow out of friendships, or you know, you have to choose to set those boundaries. In the long term, it's a kindness to both of you. And I guess if anyone wants to hear like an actionable way to do this, like, I don't know if, I hope this doesn't sound savage, but sometimes on Instagram you have to kind of like filter out people that are no longer in your life, and you're just kind of seeing and either make you feel inferior or intimidated, or you're comparing in a negative way. And usually, like for me, that I only found that was people with I didn't know, like it was celebrities or someone who I happened to follow because I saw this, and it was just like, and it's not even a dislike towards them, it's not even anything against them, it's that this is creating this effect on me, so I need to try and eliminate that. So if that person posting all those amazing pictures with this amazing body is making you feel that way, then just a healthy, actionable way to do that is just like, I don't need to follow this person on Instagram. The same way that you have to do that sometimes in life, you know what, like there's a thing of like, we're not friends, but I still care for you and I still wish you all the best, but I just cannot be involved with you in that way. So yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, removing comparison, and I think Jade or Sam said it in the last episode, just own your attention. You know, to some huge degree you are, and you feel at what you give attention to. So whether that's people or ideas or affirmations, mantras, you know, singing, etc. You know, own your attention, and to your earlier point, Maya, have some intentionality about it. Know what you're intending to do, and kind of sculpt it accordingly, sculpt your attention accordingly. What are you guys up to today, apart from this?
Watching the Barbie movie.
Oh, are you?
Oh, your Barbie movie, yeah.
Oh my God, I really want to see it.
Is that opposed as opposed to seeing the Oppenheimer one, or are you going to see both? You know, that's the kind of debate.
I'm definitely seeing both, but I worked the Barbie premiere, so I'm definitely in the Barbie mindset right now.
Yeah.
And then definitely I'll do Oppenheimer next week at some point when I can squeeze in the time.
Yeah, they're both essential, I feel. Yeah. Yeah.
I saw a post the other day, and it was like 15 years ago. The Dark Knight and Mamma Mia came out on the same day as well, and it's like, well, yeah, and they're both great movies, so I can't we just be like that?
Yeah, both great in their own rights. Yeah.
Does anything come to mind, gang?
For me, I think it's kind of what I was touching on before, those little daily habits and things. I've got two that straight away spring to mind. Gratitude journaling, gratitude, like whatever way, shape or form works for you. Writing 3 down every morning or every evening. That's what I find works best for me, but some people like sharing it with your partner in bed at the end of the day, or thinking them. You don't even have to write them down. If you don't have time, just take literally 2 minutes and just think of 3 things or more. If more spring to mind, don't limit yourself, just whatever works for you, because it shifts your perspective from what you're lacking to an abundance to what you do have. And it also encourages that reflection. It kind of forces you to look at yourself. It encourages that deep self-reflection, and the positive mindset, which I think that really, really helps. And then another thing I find I do see a dramatic difference in my day in is not it doesn't always happen, doesn't always work if there's important emails and things, but not looking at your phone for at least half an hour in the morning when you wake up. Longer if possible, but most of the time it's half an hour, because it's like, just get up, go brush your teeth, shower, whatever, do those bits, and then check your phone, because your brain is literally a sponge when it first wakes up, and it just absorbs everything. And also, you, Richard, were saying about dopamine before, like whatever you start the day with, the rest of the day your brain not only, but will seek that dopamine level that you got and from that source. So that's why you'll find yourself, oh, I'm scrolling through Instagram again. And sometimes you don't even realize that's the worst bit. It's when you're just like, what the fuck am I doing? Like,
yeah.
I put myself here. So for me, I really do feel a difference when I start the day. On an ideal day, if I have time, starting with meditation is great, but if not, if it's a rush, just not looking at it first thing, because it just, I just think it sets your day to a healthier mindset.
Perfect combo platter of things. Just on that dopamine point before Mary shares hers, there's been two, Anna Lemke, I might be mispronouncing her second name, but she's done loads and loads of research into the kind of slightly pernicious role of dopamine as expressed through these platforms and apps and our kind of digital media lives, etc. I don't think we understand just what an effect it's having. And yeah, what you suggested, that hour in the morning without it, is such a huge antidote. I'll share it in the show notes, but also I'll share it with you two on WhatsApp. It's on Hidden Brain, and I've listened to another one, and it's like when you hear her talk about it, it's utterly extraordinary, because it's shaping, all of our reactions to things from that time we consume it in the morning. And if you're not using it wisely, it's throwing your capacity for joy and connection entirely. So you couldn't be wiser to bring that up and implement that habit in your own days. It's massively important. But yes, Mary, sorry. After that side note.
Sorry. I think I'm terrible for looking at my phone so early on in the morning. I was just thinking that when you said that, Myra, I was like, oh no, I definitely need to try and incorporate that. And then, for me, I think I bought myself a deck of cards that are like mantra cards, because I really want to try that. And I really believe that, I feel like the more you say something to yourself, you will believe it, won't you? Not in a kind of like naive sort of way, but it's almost like it will start to go into you in some way. It will settle in you somewhere. And if you're telling if you're constantly telling yourself, oh, you could have done better, oh, you could have done that more, oh, you're not enough, like, oh, if you're saying these kind of more, destructive things to yourself and you believe them, and then you fall into a downward spiral, then why can't you say some good stuff to yourself that might, eventually kind of sink in and start to, over time, feel like it's true? And so I bought myself a mantra card deck. So I've been trying to do that, and actually it's nice because you just pull it and it's a different one every time, or it might be one that you read a few weeks ago, then you repeat it to yourself 5 times. You can say it out loud or say it in your head, or like you said, in any way you want to do it is the way that it works for you. Or you could even sing them as well. You could sing your mantras, be a certain tune. It can just be your own tune, it's all natural voice style, so just singing a mantra to yourself, maybe as you're brushing your teeth, thinking of it in your head, or sticking it on a post-it note on the mirror so you can look at it before you leave for the day. So I think definitely that's something that I'm trying to do. And again, kind of incorporating the singing and incorporating the fun playfulness of that as well, and then you go out into the rest of your day hopefully feeling a bit more kind of in that mindset.
No, I never heard of a mantra card deck before, but I'm curious as to what it looks like and some of the things it encourages you to say.